Alright, I'm redoing this because I had audio issues, so I'm redoing this. And, well, alright. First, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Brand new episode, brand new review. And I gotta say, pretty good episode, all things considered. I do have a few nitpicks and some issues here and there, but the ninth episode for the season of My Adventures with Superman, good thing. It's good. Yeah, so let's just dive into it, make this quick and easy for everybody involved. First thing is first, this is continuing off of the cliffhanger from last episode where Superman was captured by Task Force X. Basically, the Suicide Squad, along with General Lane and Amanda Waller. So we pick right up right after that. So, for starters, Jimmy and Lois are looking for Clark because they don't know where the hell, where he ended up. So they're like looking all over the place for him. And then he's in this, like, I don't know, underground government facility, or we go to Clark, who's in this underground government facility. They're using like this red sun cloak, or this light mimicking the effects of a red sun, along with the containment unit that's keeping him down. So again, then comes in Lane. He gives him the rundown. He's like, you know what you did. You're here to be a weapon. Your kind came here to try and conquer us. Clark obviously doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, so he goes, what are you talking about? Then Lane kind of shows the 3D printer, turns it on, 3D printer, 3D projector kind of thing, and all of a sudden we get to see what actually happened and what he's talking about. And this is kind of my first little problem. I am not the biggest fan of this. I know Man of Steel did this, and I'm sure there are other comics and all this other stuff that explored it. I was not the biggest idea or fan of this idea. But for the purpose of the story, that's kind of how things went. But again, Lane and Amanda were in it. Were in the flashback or in the film that was playing. I don't even know how to explain it. And so they witness it. And again, this was kind of like the day the Earth stood still moment kind of thing. Or what's that movie with? Oh, I forget that movie. It's the one with the with ironically enough the woman who played Lois in Man of Steel, who was playing the linguist and trying to figure out what the alien. It kind of reminded me of that for a second, along with the day the Earth stood still. I think is more appropriate though, because the alien spaceship is there and it's been there for a while and they don't know what it's doing. They're monitoring it. I don't know if something like this. And here's my big problem. Well, two things actually. First, how do you hide something like this? Why the hell does nobody else know about this event? The Earth and everybody else continues to pretend like 0 day never happened. I'm like, so an alien invasion happened and none of y'all know about it? Look, I think there's a limit to how much the government can keep a lid on fucking aliens, bro. you know? Especially ones that decimated would look like an entire military, like, whatever, however many troops were, like, protecting it or whatever. I'm sure the word of this would get out, like, would leak to the press immediately in the event of something like this happening. So that's number one. Number two, Clark gets this really, really bad impression. And obviously, I understand. Look, there's no real way to explain we're invading this fucking world kind of thing. Now, again, there may be more context, but I very much doubt it personally. And so, now this is, like I said, this is Clark's first exposure to his people, to other Kryptonians, and he's going, "Wow, we were just here to conquer these motherfuckers." That's really fucked up. Now, again, this is my other issue that pops up is Clark for the longest time, I think throughout the show, constantly asks the question of who am I, and never bothers to go to the ship and ask for questions. He never bothers with it. And the one time he did was just to get his suit and meets the Kryptonian that I'm assuming is his father. I could be wrong, but who knows? It could be like how it is in like in the those new 52 movies where there's like that's just like the AI or the assistant to help take care of him or whatever. And so we had it, like I said, Clark gets this really bad first impression, and yet what I think would have been more interesting is if he had this really good impression of his people, of all the achievements they'd done, and all the abilities they have, and all this other kind of stuff. And as he's slowly learning them, he could be like, "Oh, okay." And then all of a sudden, he has this, what General Lane shows him, and it clashes, right? I thought that would have been a more interesting kind of conflict for Clark instead of just being given, "I'm just a weapon" kind of thing. So I'm like, this feels very odd to kind of see this kind of thing with Superman, but again, I don't mind it. I just wish for something a little different. And, well, okay. So what happens from there? Well, Lane starts to have his doubts because he's like, well, this kid is too young to have known about the events that happened all those years ago. And he goes to Amanda Waller and says, I may have my doubts about this. I'm like, number one, that's your first mistake. You don't ever say that to Amanda Waller. You don't ever say you have a regret or you are doubting the mission. That woman will turn on you in an instant. And that's what she did. So she let out the criminals on purpose to make it look like it was under Lane's command and make him look like a blubbering idiot. It's what Amanda Waller does. She will happily get rid of people who do, who are not with the mission and who are not committed. Gets rid of Lane. Everything's made to look set up Lane and make him look like take the fall and have him take the fall. She takes over control of the Suicide Squad. Superman defeats Parasite, who turned into Shin Godzilla for a split second there, and I was like, damn. It's like, holy shit, bro. Superman defeats him, unlocks X-ray vision, so that was neat to see. And then we had a big moment between Lois and Clark. 10 out of 10. I think this has probably been, I think for a lot of people, this may be their first exposure to Superman in general. This is probably by default going to be their favorite version of like Lois and Clark. When it comes to the depictions of like Lois and Clark as like a thing, I kind of like this one the best. I know there's been very numerous iterations of these two, but I think I like these two the best. I think this kind of solidified it, and plus they said the "I love you" to each other thing, so I'm like, oh, okay, that's adorable. And oh yeah, the final thing, Jimmy finds the fucking orb. I'm like, oh great, with like the whole evil Superman footage on it. I'm like, oh great, how is this not gonna backfire in the next episode or season? And what else? Oh yes, Lane has now been given the task of like tracking down and killing Superman. That about wraps it up. Is there anything else I've forgotten about? Not really. Again, I like the episode. Again, I wasn't too much of a fan of the whole invade Kryptonians invading thing. I kind of felt like, especially given that this is Clark's first exposure to Kryptonian, so I don't know. Maybe they'll kind of still do the jarring perspectives, like when he gets to like look at his ship and the ship that's underneath his parents' field, and he's gonna like want answers, and then you know his people might give a very different answer or very different perspective on things, and it'll clash, and conflict will brew. Who knows? And well, that about it. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I think that about covers it. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. Again, I like the episode. There's some things I'm not, you know, that hyped up about. I'm just kind of like, why? More than anything else. So again, I believe next episode is the last episode for the season. I could be wrong. I wouldn't be against this, there being more episodes, but I do believe next week is the last episode for the season. Now, if for some random reason this was the actual last episode, and I was just an idiot and I didn't know, then I wouldn't think this is a bad place to cut it off, because again, there's lots of things for season 2 to kind of cover, and Lois and Clark solidified their love for each other. Jimmy found the orb, so that might put doubt in his mind about his best friend. Lane is going to be on like a personal headhunter mission kind of thing. And, there's a whole bunch of criminals who got loose because of, the whole jailbreak. And also, quick thing before I end it. Deathstroke. The fuck, my dude. What the fuck is this? Why'd you waste my boy like that?